Welcome to Channel 18 News. I'm Jim Rogers. The Hopkins County Grand Jury handed up 80 indictments Wednesday. 68 of those indictments are for people who have been arrested. Gavin Heath Gilbert, age 17, was indicted for murder and 4 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Other indictments include River James Graham, who was indicted on 10 counts of possession of child pornography. Casey Gween Miles, who was indicted for 1 count of continuous sexual abuse of a young child. Asa Cole Bloit, who was indicted for 1 count of aggravated kidnapping and 1 count of assault family household member previous conviction. Matthew Jacob Miller was indicted for 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Lane Wesley Keller was indicted for 1 count of theft of cattle, horse, or exotic livestock under $150,000. All the individuals arrested and indicted can be found in the grand jury story on KSSTradio.com. Hopkins County deputies responded to a call on Farm to Market Road 69 regarding a burglary in progress. The owner of the house stated he was viewing on camera located inside his home someone who had broken into his residence and carrying items out of the house. The homeowner did not recognize William Allen Henson, age 56, of Winsboro, or anyone with him at the time. DPS and county investigators arrived at the address and spotted Henson standing in the front yard. They asked if he had permission to be on the property, and Henson could not identify the owner of the property. Deputies searched his vehicle and his coat pockets. In a pocket of Henson's coat, a case was found. Thinking it might contain stolen items, the deputy opened to find a glass pipe, a small baggie containing a white crystal-like substance believed to be methamphetamine, a marijuana cigarette, and rolling papers. Henson was arrested for possession of a controlled substance, penalty group 1, more than 1 gram, but less than 4 grams. David Carl Harvey, age 41, who gives his address as Days Inn in Sulphur Springs, was arrested following an investigation by the Special Crimes Unit. Harvey sold a controlled substance, methamphetamine, in a drug-free zone. He's now in Hopkins County Jail. Kerry Wright has filed as an incumbent for the seat on Sulphur Springs School Board. Wright and incumbent Jason Dietz, who filed Wednesday, are seeking re-election to the 2 places that will be on the May ballot for the school board. Wright currently holds the seat to which he was appointed when Don Sapal resigned. However, Wright has previous experience with the board. He had served as a member for 8 years prior to his recent appointment. With the 2 incumbents for the school board, should they be the only 2 to file for the school board, they will retain their seats without an election being needed. Here's Don Julian with sports.
The Wildcats soccer team lost their opening game Thursday in the Ice Bowl tournament in Richardson 2-0 to Class 6A South Garland. The Wildcats' record for the season slips to 3-6. The Wildcats played Dallas Lincoln Friday afternoon. They're also scheduled to play Dallas Carter Saturday at 10:10 a.m. The Ice Bowl is the Wildcats' 3rd and final tournament of the season. Lady Cats soccer team started off with a real bang in the North Forney Falcon Showcase Thursday, soundly defeating Seagullville 8-0 at North Forney High School. The Lady Cats scored 4 first-half goals and then added 4 more in the second half. Goalkeeper McKenna Gamble was required to make only 1 save in this one-sided contest. Gracie Boyer scored 4 goals for the Lady Cats. Melina Zaretta added 2 goals. Taylor Robinson and Keely Hudgens scored 1 goal each. Hudgens also provided 4 assists. Robinson and Boyer both had 1 assist. The Lady Cats improved their season record to 6-1-2. Lady Cats played Rockwall Heath Friday, and they are also playing Crandall on Friday evening. They have matches against Garland, Lakeview Centennial, and Maybank on Saturday.
2 have filed for the Place 1 seat on the Sulphur Springs City Council. 2 have filed for Place 2, and Oscar Aguilar has filed to be the incumbent for his seat at place 3. Craig Johnson is incumbent for place 1. He is challenged by Justin Davidson. This week we had the opportunity to sit down with both Johnson and Davidson to talk to them about their campaign and purpose in seeking place 1.
Tell us what drives you to serve the city.
So one of the things that I've learned recently is that the perfectionist mentality is kind of unhappy. You can never really find peace because you're always unhappy with something about yourself. So it's not a healthy way to be. But a relentless pursuit of improvement is something that can be a healthy way to look at anything that you want to get better at. And that's kind of the way that I've looked at my time on working on city council and before that planning and zoning, is constantly striving to improve where we live. And not just doing it for us and those of us that live here, but also for our children and grandchildren.
To do that, you've kind of started behind the 8 ball, so to speak. I mean, it's like there's already some issues that were not solved before that you've got to work on.
Well, you're right. And one of the things that you find when you take on anything is that there's things that are really good and things that need to be fixed. And we have a great heritage in Sulphur Springs. We have a great city, and those that came before us really did a good job. And for the most part, financially, the city has been very healthy for a while, but there's some things that have not been done, and the city's playing catch up. And one of them is we're really trying to play catch up in replacing sewer lines. And that is something that really in the last couple of years we've tried to step up. And I know the citizens can get frustrated at times when their sewer rates go up, but there's actually a reason. And when that happens, it's because we're really trying to replace some sewer lines that a lot of them are over 50 years old.
And one of those is a very large project that is about to start out around Christus Mother Frances Hospital.
Yes, we have a new hospital group in town, and I really think that they'd be very disappointed if they came in one day. You know, they've already had a problem at the hospital when one of the pipes broke, and then we didn't have access to a large part of the hospital for months. And I think that it would be even worse if the sewer backed up into the hospital, and that wouldn't be a very healthy environment where people try to go to get better.
Right. What are some of the positives that you see of the city of Sulphur Springs that you think we need to push forward?
Well, there are a lot of really great things that have been done, and there are a lot of that are just right on the edge of being accomplished. And one of them is the opportunity that Luminant has given us with this wonderful gift of giving the city that mine property. And there's so many things that we can do with that, and we already have several industries that are looking to move out there, and that is something that would be an asset for the city for years to come. So that's one. And the other would be we have achieved a lot in terms of business expansion along the way. And one of the things, if you just think back just a short 10 years ago, quality of life was never discussed by the EDC with anyone. Now it's one of the primary things that they talk about with businesses that want to come here. And it's all because of all the improvements that have been done downtown. And when a company looks at Sulphur Springs, there's two different types that we could get. One is an expansion, where the powers that be in a company really don't care. They care about the bottom line. Mm-hmm. Where can we put this thing where we can get the biggest bang for our buck? And the owners and the executives aren't coming with the company. But when you talk about a relocation where you have a company that entirely moves or they move their headquarters, the quality of life is extremely important. And one of the things that Roger Figley does at the EDC is the last thing that they do to kind of put the icing when they're making the case for Sulphur Springs is they take them downtown to lunch or dinner and let them just see how great it is down there and how the heart of our city is now a shining part of the, what we have to show off instead of just 10 years ago, it was really an eyesore.
You've been on the council for how long?
9 years.
9 years.
Yes, sir.
And in that 9 years, a lot of changes have come about. And in the process of that, what are some of the things that you're most thankful for or proud of?
Well, when I ran, I made 3 promises. And this is the first office that I ever ran for. And I'm blessed to be able to say that I've been able to keep all 3, which a lot of times people run for office and they really don't understand what they're getting into, and they make a promise that they can't keep. And one of the things that I promised was that I would never support a tax increase. And property taxes were 44 cents a hundred when I started. They're 44 cents a hundred today. And I've been able to keep that promise despite all of the improvements and money that we've spent all over the city. All that's been done without raising property taxes a dime. The other thing that wanted to tirelessly work for economic improvement, and we have done that. We have brought in a lot of businesses. We wish we could bring in some more, but you can always work for the next one. And then the third thing was to work to make the city more citizen friendly. You know, one of the things that can happen with government is people can forget that they exist to serve the citizen and the taxpayer. And I've seen people that work for the government and then they go and they work in the private sector. And it's funny how their attitudes change when their pocketbook depends on what people think about them. And every now and then you just need to give a little bit of a boost and encouragement of reminding people that we're there to serve the citizen. And we have made great strides towards making the city more taxpayer and voter friendly. And an example of that was, you can imagine when we redid that beautiful Carnegie post office or former library and made it the new city hall. Every single employee that has an office in the city wanted to have an office in there. And, you know, we don't have a paid mayor, and the mayor's not full-time, but, you know, I was mayor at the time, and I wouldn't mind having an office in there, but I couldn't. There's no way you could justify that.
Right.
But we made a conscious decision that you would not be in that building unless you had interaction with the public. And if you notice, every single office and department that is housed within that building has something to do with interacting with the public. And one of the things that's nice is you used to have to go all around town to conduct business with the city, and now most of it is between the water department and the police department, which is in the old city hall, and then you've got permitting, the city manager, the city attorney, city secretary, all in one place, and municipal court. In that one building, it's kind of more centrally located.
Which makes this better for the citizen.
It does. It does.
You mentioned the police department, and a lot of work went into the building where they are located, and some other process is following through here with kind of uniting the police and the fire department under one leader, and a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, one of the things that when it comes to doing the budget every year, sometimes you have to make tough choices, and they're not always popular choices. But you have to do the right thing for the city as a whole. And one of the things this year is we had an opportunity to consolidate the position at the top. And most of the time when people have to go through the elimination of positions, it's always the little guy that goes. And in this case, it was the top department head, and we were able to choose which one was best to keep. And the police chief, in this case, was cross-trained. It was most qualified to run the department, so we elected to keep him. And that hasn't been popular, but one of the things that I've pointed out is there's nothing that is written anywhere that says that the director of public safety has to be a policeman, or primarily a policeman. You know, it could be somebody that works their way up through the fire department, and they can get cross-trained in police and they can achieve that position too. But whoever has that position needs to be somebody who is qualified to do both.
When you look at this, basically you looked at it from the standpoint of management and budgeting and this kind of thing within the two departments? That
is correct. And the department head at the top mostly focuses on personnel and budget. And we looked and evaluated, and one of the things that you want to be able to do is still achieve the mission of both departments And we felt like that we could do that, and that it would be safe for not just the citizens being able to get the services delivered for the either public safety, police, or firefighting and fire prevention. And we made the judgment that we could achieve both.
Still have the same number of individuals within both departments, maybe with the exception of the one?
Yes, I mean, and you're going to have a small amount of turnover in both,
right.
But we haven't eliminated any positions in either department, and might actually add. So.
Okay. You mentioned the gift that Lumina is making to the city.
Yes.
That property, that is somewhat of an adventure, I would think, for someone who is going to be on the council.
It is, and it will double the land size of the city, in which you think the possibilities are endless of what we could do with it. And there's a lot of people that worry that we're going to jump in with both feet and spend an enormous amount of money in day one, and you just can't. It's just too big. Mm-hmm. And so initially what we'll do is we'll pick the low-hanging fruit and work in phases towards developing it and try to put it to the best use for the city.
So what I'm hearing you say that whatever first steps are made are not going to be the only direction that's going to be taken with that property. I know that there's been some talk about some recreational usage
yes.
for some of that property, but if you do that, that's not locked in stone for the whole property.
It's not, and given the size, in order to be able to put it to its best use in the beginning, we might have whole sections of it that are devoted towards hay production or cattle grazing or something to just get some use out of it before we decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's not a curse at all, but it is a little bit of a double-edged sword because it is so big and it's such a great gift. And one of the things that it was such a blow, losing the mine and all those good paying jobs that were there and all the ancillary things, businesses that depended on that, and had to lose that, and then to have them turn around and do that for the city, it's just a great thing that Luminet's done.
One of the things that a city has to be is flexible, because industry comes and goes.
Yes.
The usefulness of some businesses come and go, and a city has to remain flexible. Do you see Sulphur Springs as being a flexible community like that?
There was a great deal of effort that went into the development downtown, and there were some business owners that stepped up, and they were first. They were the pioneers. When the first restaurant closed down, there was a little bit of panic there, and hand wringing. Should the city do anything to try to help? And people just took a deep breath and said, the building has still been improved. Another restaurant will move in. The next restaurant to come in will do it differently and maybe have a different formula that attracts more people. And, things change. And that is, the city has been flexible all along the way, and not just on that level. But one of the things that was done, and some of the people are still around that might have done this, but it used to be promoted that this was a good area to build a factory because we were outside of what's called an entertainment area, mm-hmm. which means that certain things are allowed to be done that wouldn't be allowed to be done closer to Dallas. And I just don't think that it's a good message to send that relocate your business here because you can pollute more. Mm-hmm. So that is not done anymore, and we want businesses that are going to be good corporate citizens, and we have them. Another thing that we've done is we want this to be a city where our children can come back. And the only way to do that is there has to be a lot of good jobs that pay well. Mm-hmm. And we don't want a company that's going to relocate here that's going to have a whole bunch of jobs that are minimum wage or a little better. We want companies, when we're actually going to go out and chase somebody and incentivize them to be here, there needs to be a wide variety of jobs, and they need to be really good paying jobs to justify the city going out and chasing them. And that way we can continue to improve the quality of life of people here.
You and I are talking on a Wednesday afternoon, so that leads me into this statement that I'm about to make. This morning I posted a story on KSSTradio.com
Yes, sir.
regarding first-time home buyers or buying and selling a home.
Okay.
I got a call from a realtor who told me that several years ago, about 70% of the housing in our community was home ownership. That percentage is decreasing, and I've heard some people talking about the necessity of having homes available for people to buy. Is there anything the city can do in regard to that would assist that level?
So part of that is the fault of what is my day job. So in 0809, there was an incredible downturn in the market.
Right.
And one of the things about money is money doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. It just moves somewhere else. So when that money left the stock market, it was a flight to safety. And then once it was in CDs, money markets, U.S. Treasuries, people soon figured out they didn't like the returns they were getting.
Right.
And so they wanted to go and they wanted to do something out of it. And a lot of that money went into residential real estate. And that's part of what has caused, I think, that the numbers that I've heard are actually reversed, that 60% of the homes in town are rental property. And so one of the, I heard a saying, I've got a friend that's in the oil industry, and they said that one of the cures for low oil prices is low oil prices. Right. So if we have a shortage of homes, that will eventually solve itself by having people that if there's a shortage, people will build homes on spec to fill that need. Right. And that leads us to one other thing, which is a lot of homes have been built recently outside the city limits. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of what the city is trying to do is we want to encourage more homes to be built inside the city limits, because one of the things is when homes are built outside the city limits, and I'm not talking about farm and ranch homes or people that want to live on 20, 30, 40, 50 acres, you can't get that type of lifestyle inside the city.
Right.
But neighborhoods, when those are built outside the city limits, it places an enormous financial strain on the county, because that layer of taxation inside the city pays for the services for those homes. So if the city's not doing it, it falls on the county to do that. The other thing is when that home is built inside the city limits, the county still gets their tax revenue on that home, and they don't have to do anything more than what they're already doing for it, which is to provide court services and election services, things like that. But beyond that, they're not having to fix a road that's designed for limited vehicular traffic. Right. That's got 1,000 cars a day driving up and down it, tearing it up.
Right.
So if we can encourage more home building inside the city, it'll fix that problem you brought up, and it'll also help alleviate some of that strain on the county and make the city more healthy at the same time.
One of the things that was talked about when the group was here discussing planning for the future of the city,
yes,
was the empty spaces within the city.
Mm-hmm.
And as we move forward in this planning, is that something the city is going to address? I mean, there's going to be a multitude of things the city will need to address. How focused are you going to be in some specific areas?
Well, most of that will have to be done via incentive, because if someone owns a large tract of land inside the city limits and they don't want to develop it, let's say they want to run cows on it, there's nothing that we can do to change that. It's their private property, and they can do that if they choose to do it. You would think that eventually, once that land becomes worth a certain amount, they would decide that maybe it needs to be sold to someone that would develop it or develop it themselves. But what we're going to focus on is trying to encourage more development in the city. And one of the things that we can do is, traditionally, the city does not build streets. Developers build streets, the city maintains them. And traditionally, the city does not add new water and sewer lines. We have developers do it, and then they turn it over to the city. You brought up the new sewer lines at the hospital. That whole area there needs water and sewer. And so if we can accomplish both and then make it available for private development, all the better.
What specifically do you want to say to the residents of Sulphur Springs regarding your campaign and your concerns for the city?
I hope that what I have done in the 3 terms that I've been there on council so far justifies being reelected. However, it's a campaign for a reason, so I will be campaigning. I'll be asking people for their votes. But one thing that I would ask is if you're happy with downtown, if you like the way downtown looks, vote for me. If you like having a new major street replaced every year and every year having the summer paving program improved, vote for me. And if you like that we've done all this without raising your taxes, vote for me. If you want to change of direction, vote for someone else. But I would be honored if people would return me to the city council, and I will continue to do the best that I can. And it's been an honor serving the city so far. And I would love to speak to each one of you if I can and ask you personally for your vote.
Justin, you filed for a place 1 on the Sulphur Springs City Council. Tell us why you filed.
Well, Jimmy, it's really simple. The perception in Sulphur Springs is there is a need for some change. I was contacted actually 2 years ago by some supporters, and there was a seat open at that time that already had a challenger. So this cycle came around, and I chose place 1 for a specific reason, because I want every citizen to be number 1.
Okay. And as you want the citizens to be number 1, how do you plan to accomplish that?
To be an advocate, to be a voice on the city council for every vote, to be transparent and disclose all information that our city government is tasked with, if you will, tasked with challenges, is what I would say. The challenges are that the perception is, again, we astonish people with numbers and statistics, but are we giving full disclosure to our citizens? Not a select few, not a certain section of the city, but every citizen's involved, and every citizen is affected by every vote that comes from that city council, whether that's water and sewer and sanitation, or simply an elimination of a position in a fire position, if you will. Transparency and disclosure, I believe, is very important to every citizen in our city.
With that as a goal in mind, what are some of the things that you want to be specific about in this?
When I came out a couple months ago with my initiatives, one of the big things with me was eliminate the 12 p.m. special sessions. I think the people need to have an opportunity to visit with our city council in a public forum, not be limited to a 3-minute time session, if you will. It's a public forum. They're elected to serve us, and I don't think we should ever put a time frame on someone's opinion, especially when it comes to important items to there. Every item to every citizen is important. It may not be important to some, but in my opinion, if you're in that council position, every person has a voice and every person should be heard. A big thing that I'm looking at is code enforcement. And I have reviewed a lot of things with the Texas Health Code 343. That's the public nuisance. And I believe that there's a difference in grass growing out of a sidewalk and a vehicle sitting on 4 flat tires. All roads lead to Sulphur Springs downtown. All roads lead to our beautiful Gerald Prim Stadium. And you drive by that, and that's an eyesore. And I think we could do a better job with code enforcement in our city.
When you look at the code enforcement, you mentioned grass, you mentioned vehicles. What are some of the other things?
Well, furniture, appliances. That's a very big safety violation. You got, the Freon and things of that nature in these appliances. There are streets in our city that I just drove by en route to visit with you that there's appliances sitting out in the front yard. I think that we have a plan, we have city cleanup, but I think we can do a better job. Because, number one, it's an eyesore. Number two, we have children that we have to watch out for. And we all know we were kids once. I necessarily didn't stay in my yard either. So mom and dad may have said stay in the yard, but at the end of the day, I may have ventured out. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be a part, and I don't want to have any child in our community get over into something that could cause a little bit more of a problem than just an eyesore.
Right. As it relates to your work with the council, what are some of the other specifics as it relates to development within the community?
Well, the thing is with that is, and I've kind of been misquoted on that, some of that in the social media world. I've never stated I wanted to tear down the progress that our city has made. I do believe that there's opportunities exterior of Celebration Plaza. I drive down the interstate eastbound, westbound. I see a sign that says Celebration District, where locals eat. That's advertising for our downtown businesses. Our DBA's done a fantastic job. And yes, it is a beautiful area. However, I do drive by other restaurants in this town, and the parking lots are full. And locals eat elsewhere. And I believe that infrastructure and business development exterior of Celebration Plaza makes it a whole, not just necessarily a specific area. Another thing that I find very important, and I've had some contention on this just through social media conversation and things like that, is the Crosstown Trail and those things that are connecting everything to downtown. My problem that I have with it is, and I use problem loosely, if you will, for lack of better terms, is what are we doing prior to getting to downtown? We're crossing Main Street, which is the old Highway 67. The disclosure and transparency that I brought up hasn't really been clear of how we're going to make that crosswalk safe for our citizens. Is there going to be lighting across that area through the valley, as I say, over the railroad tracks? So when I look at all those things, specific items, I think the city and citizens want to know, because the questions are being asked if you look at social media, and you and I have laughed before that if it's not on social media, then it can't be true. However, these items are important to people, and I want to be that advocate on the council that says, wait a minute, what about this?
Obviously, the council has some responsibilities in management of budgets and this kind of thing. What kind of background do you bring to that?
15 years in the restaurant business, consultant business, operating partner with one of the largest groups in Dallas. And we're talking about $200,000 a week in net sales, not gross sales, net sales. So budget items is my second nature, if you will. I love numbers. People always tell me I think too much and I'm analytical. But at the end of the day, I think instead of astonishing you with statistics, I think being transparent and disclosing full numbers is very important to everyone that pays taxes in our community.
Specifically, what would you say to the community about road work?
Road work has been a hot item. It's been a hot item for years, and here's something that I have made in my notes, and I look forward to talking about this through our campaign, is a lot of times I have heard city leaders say, well, you had a new road. Well, reality, we didn't have a new road. We had an overlay. And a lot of times we have city employees that are out with the trucks and trailers with the shovels of gravel, and we're fixing potholes. Our city manager's report says we fixed 118 potholes. That's not fixing a road, that's patchwork. And I think that a complex, comprehensive review of our budget with the money that's being spent in other areas, I think we could probably channel some of that money into different areas where, when we're leading to the Celebration District and where other locals eat, we have good roads to travel on.
What specific development would you want to see in our city?
I have a tremendous amount of respect for Wildcat Way. I think that was one of the smartest things that ever transpired in our community. Number one, to eliminate some traffic. Number two, we have a lot of property now. The business owners that are looking to move to Sulphur Springs, we have a lot of property out there. Now, granted, that property is owned by people and different citizens and business leaders in our community, but I think for the development in the future, we have that opportunity. There's a lot of other opportunities that if you drive throughout our city. I think that we need to evaluate wholeheartedly as a community, is Walmart our only option? Is Brookshire's our only option? We're growing fast. Everyone around us is growing so tremendously fast. And for lack of better terms, it seems sometimes we got Walmart and we have Brookshire's, but you can drive 35 miles west and we have a Super One, if you will, or 40 miles east and we have a Super One, if you will. Yes, that's all part of the Brookshire's brand, but I think more variety and attracting more businesses to this community attracts new residents, and it attracts transfers to our community. My opponent has said for the future of our future residents. I agree with him on that. But I do believe that our future is exterior of Celebration Plaza at this time.
What specifically would you say to the community as we kind of wrap this up? What specifically would you say to the community at this moment regarding your campaign?
The campaign will be very straightforward. It will be no browbeating, if you will. I'm not going to knock on your door and tell you what you should and shouldn't do, because at the end of the day, social media, a candidate, an incumbent, a city manager, or any colleagues of those people don't decide this election. The election is decided by the people. Another option for these people will be me on the ballot. Back in the day, you had the incumbent had an I next to his name, and then the challenger had a C, if you will. Well, when the mayor makes a motion, the motion's been made, he has a first, and then there's a second, and all those in favor say aye. My campaign's very simple. If you want to continue to hear aye, I encourage you to vote for our incumbent. If you want to vote for somebody that's going to cough and use that C as a contraire, I encourage you to vote for me on May 5th, and we will bring another voice to the Council of Sulphur Springs.
Thanks for watching Channel 18 News. Have a great evening.